Hey guys, good afternoon. I'm back as I promised. I had work and now I'm back to talk to you guys. I would like to do a video on the pros and the cons of staying in a relationship and getting help and as to leave. So right now we're gonna do, let's see here. We're gonna do some reasons why you would stay, why you wouldn't reach out for help, okay? I'm doing some statistics on the computer, and I know my main reason for not getting help was lack of support, fear of being judged. Of course, that was the biggest one, fear of being judged and fear of what family and friends would say about me. Obviously, your abuser's influence and what they say and do to keep you. Let's see here. Threats that they make to get you to stay. Some people do it for your child's best interest. If you have a child and you say, well, it's best for my child if I stay. No, honey, it's not. It's not best for your child. And we'll get into why it's not in a little bit. Pressure from your kids saying, oh, you know, I want mommy and daddy to be together. Don't do it just because your kids want you to be together. Cultural and racial defenses. Cultural defenses may be used both by the offender and survivor to justify the abuse. Some people conform to common stereotypes about their own or other cultures. Domestic violence is against the law regardless. It don't matter what your religion is. Here in the United States, it is against the law. If you're watching and you're not in the United States, let me know. I would love to do some research on your laws where you're at. Denial. A lot of people are in denial about the abuse. Or about how dangerous your abuser may be. Believing that your partner could get better. You're in denial that they're never gonna change. Okay? Disabilities. If you have a disability and it makes it harder to get out. Elderly, guys. I just started working at a job today with the elderly, and you would not believe the abuse that happens to elderly. It's terrible. Sorry guys, my neighbors are having a birthday party next door for her nephew. Anyway, the elderly get abused, for one, because they can't speak up for themselves. They have caretakers that treat them like absolute, excuse my language, shit. It's so sad. When I did my training today, the statistics of the abuse, why it happens, what happens to them, people steal their money. You'll have caretakers that will go to the store for the patient or the client, and they will use their credit cards. They will write checks to themselves and spend the client's money. When I was told that today, I started bawling my eyes out. I couldn't believe some of the stories I was hearing. Okay? Another one, the abuser's excuses. Their excuses make you stay. You think that their excuse justifies the violence or the behavior, blaming their jobs, stress, or substance abuse. Substance abuse is a big one. Alcoholism, drug addiction can cause violence in the relationship. Okay? Let's see a couple other ones. Let's see what I haven't mentioned yet. I think the biggest is being in denial. Now I listed 10. Let's break them down. I'm gonna go back up to the first one. Okay, the first one I said was, excuse me guys, lack of an advocate. Not having somebody on your side. Not having somebody that you feel will help you. Sometimes you feel intimidated, like you have nobody. And if you do tell somebody, you're intimidated. Abuser's influence. If they're rich, that's a big one. If they're political, famous, popular athletes, you wouldn't believe how many football players wind up domestic violence charges against them. You can, a lot of times when I say that they're wealthy, they have the money to pay people off, the police and stuff. So then you're afraid, well, I'm afraid to, how could I put it? I'm afraid to get help because I think that if I make a police report, my spouse, my abuser, will just pay the police off, pay the court off, pay the judge off, pay the lawyers. It's happened. That's a big one. I don't talk about my situation too much, but I have a hard time putting him away because his brother is a police officer. And unfortunately, being that he's an officer, his brother's an officer, he gets him out of jail. Every time he does something and gets locked up, he's out within days. Threats. Your abuser will threaten you. Threaten if you... Here's one of the most common ones. If you tell somebody, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna torture your family, I'm gonna go after your mother, your grandmother, your aunts, your uncles, your sister, brother, kids, I'm gonna come after your kids. The threats I think that's a big one that makes people stay. Or even if it's not in a domestic situation. Say you're raped, and that victim says, if you go to the police, I know where you live. I'll come after your family. Guys, that's the biggest one, is threats. Why people don't decide to get help, or why people don't get out of the domestic situation. It's sad. It's very sad, but it happens. Children. I'm gonna do 2 in 1 here. The child's best interest, or getting pressure from the child. That was the 4th and the 5th one that I said. Sorry, excuse me, guys. One of the biggest reasons married couples that are in domestic situations, or even couples that aren't married but they have children together, I'm staying with him for the best interest of my child. But it's not. It's not. Because that child sees what mommy or daddy is going through. And it's heartbreaking. You don't realize the effects that it has on your kids. Kids that have to see their mothers or their fathers being abused. Often that turns them into drug addicts and kids that get into trouble a lot. So when you think it's in the best interest of your child that you're staying, it's really not. It's really in the best interest to leave for your child, because it's not healthy for your children. Another one was the pressure from children. Oh, well, mommy, I don't want you to leave daddy. I want you and daddy to stay together. I don't want my mommy and daddy separated. Or daddy, I don't want you to leave mommy. Sometimes it's because they're afraid that things are going to be a lot different and in a bad way. Like, they're not going to see their parents. If they go with mommy, they're not going to see daddy. If they go with daddy, they're not going to see mommy. Let me tell you something. If you leave, please, I don't care what the situation is. If the mother or the father, say you get a divorce from your husband because he's abusive to you, but he's okay with the kids. If that father wants to be in that child's life, don't ever keep the kids from him just because you're afraid to set it up. Somebody could help you with the transferring of the kids if you have to go and drop the kid off to the father's house. Have somebody go with you if you're afraid of abuse. Call the police. I'm telling you something right now. The police would more than happily go with you to prevent something from happening than having to get a phone call because you decided to take it upon yourself to go by yourself and something happens. Or the judge could set up a safe place to meet to do a transfer of the child. So that's the kids. The cultural racial defenses, I kind of talked a little bit about. I know, now I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly the laws with Muslims and different cultures. I know in some cultures, raping your husband and wife is not a punishable crime. Like, I know there's some religions that believe in that, some cultures that believe in that. I don't care what your religion is. I don't think you should stay. If you're in an abusive relationship, get out. Get out. Because if it's for religion, I'm telling you right now, God would want you to be safe, happy, and healthy. And if your husband is not the right one, if your husband is abusing you, making you sick physically, mentally, I'm telling you right now, God would forgive you. Or Allah, or whoever you, Jehovah, whoever you worship. Denial. A lot of people are in denial. Sometimes it's easier to be in denial. Sometimes you think, well, kind of self-blame goes with denial. Maybe it's my fault. I'm not gonna leave maybe it's me, I need to become a better person and he wouldn't hit me. If I didn't piss him off, he wouldn't hit me. Denial and self-blame is terrible. It's a bad one. But it's one of the biggest reasons that people stay and don't get out. Again, denial that even if it was a sexual assault, molestation, well, maybe it was my fault. It is never, never the victim's fault. I don't care what you're wearing. I don't care what you said or did to piss that person off. It is never your fault. What you're wearing doesn't give a man or a woman or anybody the right to take advantage of you sexually or in any other way. Don't ever, ever let me hear anybody ever say, maybe it was my fault. Because it's not. It's not. And I will, on my videos, you're gonna hear me talking about that. It is not your fault. I don't care what you were wearing. I don't care what you said or did. It's not your fault. Okay? Disabilities may face greater obstacle, may be harder getting out. But just because you have a disability does not mean you can't get out and you can't get out. Okay? So don't say, well, I have a disability, so I can't get out. You can get out with that disability. It might be a little more of a struggle, might be harder, might be scarier, but you can do it. You can do it. You are worth it. I don't care what disability you have. Mental retardation, cancer, handicap. I don't care what the situation is. You are worth, you and your disability are worth getting out of a abusive domestic violence situation. Rape, anything. Sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, you're worth it. Okay? Elderly, again, I talked about that. Especially now with my work, I'm learning a lot about elderly abuse. Um, that one's a tough one for me because I think about my grandmother and how I couldn't imagine if somebody abused my grandmother, whether it be a family member, a nursing home, a hospital. I could never imagine it. But elderly, you're at kind of like with a disability. It's gonna be tough, but you can do it. You can get out. You're worth it. Okay? A lot of times with elderly, we don't see it because